that. Why is it that, this issue of trust always comes up before we go to the general election? Recently we saw, and we heard from the United Opposition, that IEBC needs to call for some sort of dialogue between, all political stakeholders and even NGOs, because they feel like, as it stands, they don't have trust within the electoral body. And so is the concern by a section of Kenyans. So why is it always that we have concerns about, IEBC? Is it a structural issue, or is it about the leadership that we have at the helm of the institution?
Let
him answer and then I'll come back to you, sir.
I think basically the biggest mountain that is affecting IEBC is actually trust. And that is why you see in every election cycle, the top management and the commissioners usually suffer that trust issues to a point of either exiting before the release of results or exiting after the release of results. You have never seen an IEBC official, even when it was ECK, the same issue. So I think election in Kenya first has been converted into a do or die. The other bit of elections in Kenya that is affecting is that usually on the national stage, ever since the apart from the 2002, all the other elections have been a close call. And you see, when you have an election that is a close call, it is incumbent upon every candidate will know that they are actually potential to win. And whenever the results don't go their way, then they bring so many issues on the trust. But basically, there's a lot of interference with IEBC. And my thinking is we need to re-engineer the whole process of IEBC. First of all is to have what we can say public participation. Whatever they are doing in terms of the systems they are bringing, let also people participate to know what is this system they are bringing, so that it is not seen as an animal that somebody went to a corner and invented a kamango somewhere and they are now brought and nobody knows about it, nobody knows how it's supposed to work. So there should be a proper public participation to a point whereby all the players have accepted the system, that this system works well, and these are the checks and balances that you can always know when things have gone, when things are going wrong. So you carry the system, the IEBC should carry all the people, all the important stakeholders along. You get, like if you have presidential candidates, usually it's a 2-horse race in Kenya, basically. Even if you don't want a 2-horse race, it will be a 2-horse race because finally, even if it goes where it has to, we have made our constitution to be a 2-horse race. So in a 2-horse race exercise, the two fronts should be comfortable with the system being implemented. So it is very important that no one within the players should be left disadvantaged.
Okay.
You know, that's very important. So the IEBC should try as much as possible to carry everyone along, so that you know in Kenya, lies are manufactured and propaganda are manufactured, and then if there is opaqueness, it grows. Then that opaqueness grows to a point whereby now the trust issues, the other players feel that this IEBC seems to be working for someone, and even if they do anything that is good, anything that is beyond reproach, because of those trust issues that has developed as the process nears completion, it becomes a suspect. So
okay.
The most important, just to summarize what I'm saying, is that to cap on the trust issues, whenever IEBC is introducing a system, let all the players be participants and let all of them give a thumbs up that this is the way to go. And for every process, it just involve everything and buy them close to a point whereby when somebody loses, he knows he has lost clean deal, where there is no suspicion. But whenever we leave, we do a case whereby it's opaque. Any opaqueness, results into trust issues. So my belief is that we also need to borrow other models, which I think in Kenya we fear. We also need to borrow other models that are working. Let us look at the model of the US. How is it working? We don't have bombers. I've never seen when they are doing elections for presidential elections in the US. It has been a disaster. And if we model along those lines again, because I'm hearing we are still mentioning about Kim's kids, we are still mentioning about what? We are still mentioning about Tarling Center.
Okay. We
are still mentioning about the chairman being the returning officer of the national elections. It will, in a close elections, it will always be difficult. And then there are scavengers in the name of lawyers. Sorry for using that term. Because they know this thing has to head into a Supreme Court. So they also push up the candidates to be able to, so that they can you have seen that mind-boggling fee notes, legal fee notes that will result on that. So we need to remove all this to a point whereby there is a transparency, so that the point of even going to the Supreme Court, it is not necessary.
Fair enough, Honorable Kiplagat. Yeah. Fair enough. Honorable Gunjiri, before I come back to Mr. Oswago, there is the concern of trust, and there's also the concern of political interference. And he has alluded to it, Honorable Kiplagat. One of the biggest concerns is that there seems to be pressure, from the political class and political interference, more so from the government of the day, whichever, the government of the day that we have in place, whether it is this time or the previous one, there seems to be that particular concern. How can we tame that problem and ensure that we let IEBC do its role independently without, the pressure that comes from the political class?
There are very simple things to follow, which can make us have a good election and make the trust, as you are saying. Let me put it this way. When some of the leaders, especially now in the opposition, when you are going and you are saying the election is planned to be stolen, and you go in public everywhere talking that way, the election will be stolen, there is a plan of this and this to be stolen, and you are going to tell the people who cannot understand the process, as the Mheshimiwa is saying. So, you are preparing people. When you are saying the election will be stolen, let me ask you, when you say the election will be stolen, and we have not gone for election, you are not saying it is stolen, a day will be stolen. What are you trying to prepare people? And how do you know? And if you know, as opposition, election will be stolen, it's very important for us, because you don't want the election to be stolen. What can they do? It's to go in the court. If there are issues, presented in the court. We are saying the election will be stolen because of A, B, C, D. Then the judiciary, it will be able to see whether you're making sense. On top of that, even if you're in the opposition, there is member of parliament in the opposition. There is member of parliament in the government. Why don't you use it? And the member of the parliament can bring it in the parliament and say, we are suspecting the election will be stolen because of A, B, C, D. Then it can be discussed before we go to election. That's why I told you, actually, this system, to make it proper or trust we are talking about, it is all of us. To have a process, as the Mheshimiwa is saying, for us to understand. Let me tell you, not many people, and Usogo knows that, what we are talking here, they will be able to understand. Some who are very clever, let's say from 100, there are people who already know what we are talking about, and they have their own decision. Okay. There are people who know about next month. There are people who die without knowing what are we discussing, because that's how we are born. So it is very important to make sure neither opposition or the government, let's talk the truth, then we can put the trust. If you don't do that, it's going to be a problem. Let me give you an example. I did not know what is Saba myself, until when my election was stolen. I had my tallying center, which I had used even before. And my tallying center, people are reporting from the polling station. Bahati, Karonga, where we have finished. And the result are this. And they have signed there. Both sides of the candidate who are there, they have signed. Then I get that report. We put it in my tallying center. And I was winning all through on that. But when it went to the tallying center, and that's why we want to Usago, it's not only national. That's where anything called tallying center is where the problem is. It started coming up from my opponent, coming up. And I discovered when I went, because I had gone to the court, then I just said, no, let me just leave it fast. I don't want to fight all this. Is when I came to know if Usava was opened in the Bahati, the election could have been repeated. So it's the same thing, even national. If servers were opened, why are we fighting if it's the true and there's nothing wrong with the servers? If they were okay and everything was voted properly, why object the server to be opened? So that's what I'm telling you and what Usago is saying. And also the member of the parliament is saying, let's go to where the problem is and see how can we sort out this problem, because it will come and it will come again.
You say you decided not to contest and you realized that there was manipulation in the server.
Yes.
Why then did you not decide to make sure that you follow it up and ensure that this issue is addressed at the end of the day? Because if it's not addressed, who says it cannot come up again in 2027?
Let me tell you, that's a very good question. I'm a Christian, and I prayed and asked God was this, and God showed me, let it go. You may learn something which you could not have learned before.
So
and that's why I learned server is very important to be opened. If somebody is saying open the server, and you see, even after that, I always tell people, if a problem comes or something happened, give God time and He will show you what you could have learned from that. I have learned now, the next election they cannot be stolen. There was no use of fighting. Let the people suffer themselves who did, because it's the people who did that. Let them suffer, let them cry, so that when I will come and talk with them now, they'll be able to know there was something which was wrong.
I don't want to still follow up on that, but because of time, Mr. Oswago, finally on the issue of trust, before we talk about campaign financing, as an insider, where does trust in IEBC break the most? Is it on procurement? Is it on recruitment? Is it in operations?
I'll give you quickly 5. Number 1, the problem, the law requires, and everybody expects, IEBC to be operationally autonomous. That means IEBC should be able to make its own decisions independently. That starts from the way you build IEBC, the composition of IEBC. And you have seen that every time we are recruiting commissioners, all the shenanigans that pertain to the process. There are very few occasions when IEBC has been built and the Kenyan public have confidence in the process that led to those commissioners being appointed. Until the time that we'll have confidence in the process that leads to the constitution of IEBC, there will always be a trust deficit, number 1. Number 2, on procurement. In 2013, IEBC procured 100 million voter ballot papers. And we procured these ballot papers from Britain. Last year, the last election, they procured these ballot papers from Greece. Last year.
Yes.
In 2013, there were 3.2 billion that was used to procure those ballot papers. I'm sure that in this 2027, it will be either twice that or some fraction much higher than that. So we are going abroad for the printing of ballot papers. What does it mean? It means you are printing ballot papers, number 1. In that contract, you are printing ballot papers, which I've mentioned. You are printing voters' register. You are printing election results materials, statutory forms. You are also printing. So you are printing statutory forms abroad, and the statutory form is simply saying Gujiri has won. The register simply said, Mheshimiwa, here in your constituency, you are so many people. So you are printing that one abroad. Then ballot papers are also printed abroad. Do you know we have Delarue in Kenya?
Yes.
Who will trust Delarue if you gave Delarue to print all those things? Now, but before you answer me, do you also know that our national elections are printed in Britain? Our own national elections are printed in Britain, not printed here. If we cannot trust ourselves to print our own election for grade whatever, these days I don't know what, for CPE or whatever, if you can't trust our own systems to do that, how would we entrust our own systems with the issue of printing ballot papers? It is not just IEBC, it is something in our own psyche. We have to deal with it.
So how do we cure that particular problem?
Number one, we'll come to that. So, thirdly, is that there is nothing wrong, because you asked me also direct procurement. IEBC has the capacity to decide this is direct procurement, this is no direct procurement.
Okay.
Since 2013, I am the only CEO of Ujuri who procured ballot papers direct procurement. I'm the only one. The others have been procuring through competitive bidding. And I can tell you, it is only in that 2013 that there has been no fault. Even the last election, there were some faults. Even the last one, there's some faults. In 2017, a commissioner went to read those and resigned when they were in the route. There is nothing wrong with the procurement process if you trust it, or methodology of procurement, isn't it? They say you can choose to put all your eggs in one basket, or you can choose to scatter all your eggs. If you put your eggs in one basket, all your eyes must be there. So it is not the method of procurement. It's the trust that IECB has in doing that procurement. Then it's Parliament. The oversight that Parliament exercises in IEBC, you know. Parliament has a mandate which it must exercise on IEBC. But that mandate must be proactive, and that mandate must be earlier, so that you do things much, much earlier. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
After the election in 2017, immediately before that, the repeat election, one commissioner resigned. This is Rosalind Akombe. Shortly thereafter, 3 other commissioners resigned. Between 2017 and 2022, 1 year to 2022, the commission was run by 3 people, Chebukati and 2 other commissioners. All the others, all that vacancy remained unfulfilled. IEBC cannot fulfill its own vacancies where commissioners are not there. There must be somebody within the bowels of the government of Kenya responsible for that. But we have failed to call that person and say, it is your responsibility. After 2022, is that so? The Cherera 4 also resigned.
Yes, the commission is divided.
Also resigned. And we took all those time when the commission was going without commissioners. You mentioned it earlier.
Yes.
Who do you blame for that? You can't blame the chairman of IEBC because he has got vacancies. And I looked some time back, I looked for a letter which Chebukati had written to the president when his commissioners resigned. Chebukati wrote to the president, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, telling him that these commissioners are saying they have resigned. They have not written a letter to me. Could they have written to you? Because they're not coming to work. So the problem lies somewhere, and if we don't want, if there is no law that assigned that responsibility somewhere, Mheshimiwa is here, go and change the law to say that if there is a vacancy in IEBC, that and that office must make sure that vacancy is filled within 3 months.
But Mr. Swago, even when the commission was, were trying to reconstitute that particular commission through, of course, the selection panel, there was push and pull within the political class on
Yes.
who should be nominated to that particular panel, who shouldn't.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, that also drags the process.
It drags the process because, first of all, how long did it take before the commissioners who are here were recruited? It took almost 2-3 years. Before that, the people they succeeded had been without commissioners for another 3, 4, 5 years. So between 2013 and now, I think only 2 commissioners have finished their full term of 6 years. Only 2 or 3. Between 2013 and now, out of about 15 commissioners, if you count all the commissioners who have been there, the ones who have done their full term are about 3 or 4.
Do you think they bow out because of political pressure, maybe?
You bow, one, because it could be political pressure. But I would love to leave it to Mheshimiwa here, who is much more, well, this politician who are much cleverer, to tell me, did Cherera 4 resign as a result of political inducement, or it was their own internal motion? That is for another day. But if the answer is that the resignation of the Cherera 4 was externally instigated, that tells you what I told you first. That is the autonomy of IEBC. As long as IEBC is not autonomous, you will still have this, you'll have the problem of trust. And Kenyans must learn, one, you can't have an IEBC to do a job. You have the external political class interfering with the job that IEBC does. Then when the outcome is unpleasant to you, you place blame on IEBC. I'm not defending IEBC, but I'm saying for IEBC to deliver, there has to be an ecosystem, a legal and constitutional that allows it to deliver. And in my view, that is not there.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much, Mr. Swago. Mr. Honorable Kiplagat, let me come back to you now. Let's talk about the issue of campaign financing. We have Campaign Financing Act of 2013, but they say the biggest hurdle is its implementation. Now, there's the issue of spending limits during campaign period, and the political class, more so members of parliament, do say that these limits are unrealistic. Why is it so? And is it because some argue it's because for example, sitting members of parliament do feel that are afraid that once we have limits, then the issue of wealth and having that financial muscle advantage over the rest will probably cost them their seats.
In Kenya sometimes we make laws whose implementation can be very difficult. I think one of the most difficult law to implement is campaign financing. Because it is a law that I don't know which analogy do I use. It's like lions meeting and deciding that when they have killed a sheep, this is how we are going to divide, and you hope that everyone will obey that division. But you see, the appetite of each is different. So. What I mean by that is that whoever is supposed to safeguard that to safeguard that campaign financing does not have the teeth to check on the appetite of the powers that be. You get? I hope you mean what I say. So it's a law that is actually was passed but impotent from the word go. Impotent in the sense that it is very difficult to enforce it. It's very difficult to enforce it, and what is left is that as a politician, if you are vying for any seat, if you are vying for presidency, you know what is required, and you know your competitors because you don't vie alone. So, and you know their capability. So it's incumbent upon the aspirants within that segment to be able to be prepared very well. The same case happens to MCS, the same case happens to governors, the same case. So I think in terms of where Kenya is, it is very difficult to enforce campaign financing, and let us not scratch our heads so much as to what needs to be, because nobody, even I can tell you, even me when I was competing, I never read it because why do I have to read it when nobody's obeying? So I don't even know where those limits are, and I doubt if there's any politician who will be contesting in 2027 or who contested in 2022 who is bothered with campaign financing. I just know that for me to be able to win this seat, depending on the circumstances on the ground, I need this much. I don't go to look at campaign financing to say that it's like even another one that was saying Arambes are captain, you need not to attend Arambes. And for sure, you might not be seen in the Arambe, but your hand will be seen. And if your hand is not seen, then your voters will say that you are not with the community. So
then does
in summary, what we are saying is sometimes in Kenya we pass laws that from the word go they become important and irrelevant. So part of it, I'm saying to say so. Campaigning financing is an incompetent, impotent law that has no way of being implemented. I think the story is as short as that.
Yeah.
Does it mean also then that we are monetizing the ballot?
If
we don't have limits, if we cannot have laws that regulate campaign financing.
By the way, I've told you we have a law, but it is important. It cannot be implemented. So you need to live with what you have to live with. So in Kenya, campaigns are very expensive, and if you are not able, then you have to go and look for other things to do.
Then it's like our elections are more about money, not about policies, not about what one wants to do. The bigger your financial muscle, the higher the chances of you being elected.
You see, when you are running in a race, when you are going to compete, and you find out that you wanted to run a marathon, and you find out that Eliud Kipchoge is there, and he's going to do it in 2 hours, or Sebastian Sawe was done it
2 hours.
Under 2 hours.
Yes.
And you are going to run for 6 hours, and you want to go and compete with them. Are you normal? So it is the same thing to politics. Politics is about it's about money.
It's not about ideas. It's not about ideologies and policies.
By the way, for you, at the end of the day, for you to be able to campaign well, you need the resources so that you can influence now people to listen to you. But I can tell you, you can be talking about so many good things, and then somebody just comes here without even saying anything and tells the crowd, come here, I'll give you 500 each. You will remain with the microphone yourself, although you are saying so many good things.
Okay. Yeah? Let me go to Honorable Ngonjiri. Honorable Ngonjiri, members of Parliament in 2021 rejected proposals from the IEBC in regards to matters campaign financing and generally around matters spending limits and campaign financing. Why is it so? And like, if it's true, like Honorable Kiplagat says, then are we not getting it wrong if it's all about money and not what one wants to do, really?
Well, I agree with the member of Parliament, what he said, and even yourself, If I can sit there, you come here, I ask you the question, you answer the way you're answering it here. Because today, in the meeting, as he is saying, people say, I have come, na nimekuja na hii yangu ya kawaida panga laini 300 400, and this is bribe. When you come to say now what you're asking the mheshimiwa, how can this law be implemented? How can it be implemented? Because when you go in the meeting, if you count now the people who have been doing campaign for 4 years up to now, you count what they have spent in the campaign. How do you count that? And who is going to be possible to make sure he's reporting that? Well, it's not possible. That's what I'm saying.
We'll ask Mr. Sogo to help us in regards to that.
Yes, and let me say this also. That's why I'm going back repeating. It's about all of us to get involved on this thing. If you want this country to be okay, it's all of us. Let me ask you, Osugo, because I cannot remember exactly now. I've been in Parliament for 10 years, but I don't remember when I'm also growing. Do we have a law somewhere where it says that the IEBC, it is only the institution supposed to announce the time of election and the people who are in the government to resign? Do you have something like that? Because I thought myself the way I knew before. It's only the IEBC. Before 6 months, we release to say now, people can resign and we can go for election. Today, we are 4 years in the election. Before, it was a very bad offense, Mheshimiwa, to put up road bill. before the IEBC announced. That was something to make him to be disqualified. I think so. But now, we finished the election. From the word go, we started politics. We are putting billboards. We are the track, Jew Yamarori. We are just talking about politics, cheating, inciting people, and giving money. Let me ask you, the way Mweshimwa is saying, there are some laws to implement is very complicated. Like this one for women.
Two-third gender rule.
Two-third. When was it passed? We are still trying to implement, it's very difficult. Why? Women are not elected by women. They have only one seat for women left. But all the other seats, they are elected also by men. But it has never worked. In fact, even you go somewhere, you see, the majority of women, they are there. But they will not vote for women. Because also, there's something called Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights. So to implement up to now, we have not succeeded.
Okay.
Because it's not something which has actually gone through process of civic education, maybe until when people, they will be able to accept that.
Maybe I'll
but
pause.
You see, my brother, when I'm telling you this, I'm in the parliament for 10 years. I worked with Moi, I worked with Kibaki, I worked with Uhuru, I worked with Ruto. Even if I'm not very clever, I'm not very stupid. There's something I can say which I've seen, as Yosugo is saying, Gojiri is here, he knows this thing, how it goes. Because even what we are saying about opening the server, it did not work, and the opposition were for that. Have they presented anything to make it a law that it should be opened, the server? Have they implemented that?
Let me ask Honorable Ngunjiri, and I'll probably pose the same question to Honorable Kiplagat before we engage Mr. Oswago.
Yes.
When you first won the Bahati constituency set,
Yes.
how much money did you spend?
Well, it was very, very little. I think I did not spend more than, what? I didn't spend more than 7 million.
7 million.
I did
Honorable
not spend
Kiplagat,
even something
how
like
much
that.
did you spend in 2022?
Because
of course, it is high. It's around
Approximately-
average around for comfortably, you need like a 50M or thereabout.
So my question to you would be, how then can someone out there, a young person who probably just graduated, get that amount of money to compete and win that particular seat then?
That's a very good question. That's where there's a problem of young people who are also very clever, very gifted, with a lot also wisdom. They cannot get a chance because if it is from 50 million to 100 million, let me ask you, a young person, where is he going to get that money? And the most of the people are spending even high, like some areas I don't want to mention, they spend even 200 million because they sit down with the people and agree, and the community will say it is so and so. They spend about 200 million.
Okay.
Let me ask you, most of somebody who has 200 million and the member of parliament here, my friend, can you return that money with the salary? You cannot return that money with salary.
So how
Second, where did you get this money? You know, we are frying ourselves like pork meat because most of those people have that big money. It is what they have stolen. They come and bribe you with the same money. They leave young people, they cannot get opportunity or a chance of being elected.
Fair enough.
And you see, as you are saying, youth has problem in this country. Because when we are there, we have been told, you young guys, the leadership is for you as tomorrow. Until I'm now getting old, I'm seeing people are getting old without reaching your time.
Fair enough.
I think that the corruption, it is really planted to our people even in their mind. And that's why people have agreed now, when you go, like now, I just said the other day, and then I want to buy for the seat of Bahati. Before, nobody was giving me problem. But now, if I stop anywhere, Mheshimiwa, umetuacha namna gani?
Okay,
Mheshimiwa,
fair enough. Fair enough, Honorable Ngunjiri. Then let me come to Mr. Oswago. Like they've put it, if someone can spend 50 million to win a parliamentary seat, there is a young aspiring leader somewhere who cannot afford to get the money, who cannot even get 2 million shillings. Then doesn't that underscore the need to have proper campaign financing laws? But again, like they've asked, Mr. Oswago, if IEBC can probably put in place set spending limits. Does that commission have the human and technical capacity to track these particular spending limits? Or is it just a legal administrative bluff?
We are not the only country in the world with a campaign finance law. There are other countries like India and even in the US where campaign finance law is very clear and is effectively and rigorously enforced. So it is not a Kenyan invention to have a campaign finance law. We have it. We have chosen not to enforce it. It is a problem of enforcement.
Okay.
And it is not for IEBC alone. IEBC doesn't have a court of their own. Even if IEBC sees you are exceeding your limit, IEBC will not be able to deal with it. But we have a campaign finance law. That campaign finance is porous. That campaign finance is observed more into the breach than into enforcement. The problem of enforcing that is not only with IEBC. Related to that is this. In any political jurisdiction, in a democracy where the results of a political contest is determined by the amount of money that a candidate can mobilize, that leads you into a very dangerous place. And we are already there. A study was done some years back, and I'm glad you said you spent 50 million. A study was done some years back by Professor Karuti Kanyingi and somebody Tomboya, and it is titled The Cost of Elections in Kenya. And they arrived at more or less the figure that you're saying, that in order to be a member of parliament, they divided this into what it cost in urban areas and rural areas, what it cost when you're a woman or when you're a man. And generally, it was around 40 to 50 million shillings that you mentioned. And these were monies that you spent, this is the politician who was saying. Now, I suspected when I read the report that it must be more. But he has been honest enough and said it's about 50 million shillings. Gunjiri is telling you, if you have spent 50 million shillings in order to prosecute an election campaign in a constituency, how would you recover it within 5 years? It simply means that if you can spend 50 million shillings, and some will end up spending more, when you arrive in parliament, you look for means. It's an investment to recoup it, okay? So your question is, how will young people stop this process? Number one, this is an agenda larger than an age group. Number two, this is for all of us Kenyans to ask ourselves, what kind of democracy do we want? But the democracy where the amount of money which you mobilize determine the outcome of an election is not democracy, all right? Two, electoral laws that enforce campaign finance legislation that is enforceable, they are there in the world. We just have to go and look and say, and you get the one which you want. It is more into enforcement than into enforcement. And it looks like everything that we talk about in election, which either we are unable to solve or which we find particularly unpleasant, we shed it on the door of IEBC. Perhaps because IEBC cannot effectively defend itself. But we also must learn to start taking responsibility for where we are. Earlier on, I told you on the issue of trust, and I asked you, why is it that in our national examinations, we print those papers abroad? If we can't answer that question, or whichever way you answer that question, that will tell you why IEBC prints its ballot papers of all the places in Greece. Next time you'll print them in South Africa. Nigeria did the same. In one election, Nigeria printed the elections, the ballot papers in South Africa. Now, the members of the South African Electoral Commission went to Nigeria to observe the election. When they arrived in Nigeria, on the day of the election, and they couldn't see ballot papers, so they called back home to ask, when did those ballot papers arrive in Nigeria? They were told they are on the tarmac coming to Nigeria, on the day of the election. See? So I'm saying it marvels, it beats me why Kenya cannot do simple things. Why we cannot print our ballot boxes in Kenya here, number one.
Okay.
Number two, why we make legislation which we cannot enforce. Do you know that in Kenya, you run 6 elections in a day? You know, you don't do that anywhere in the world. Do you know that everywhere else you have, like they're going to do in America in November, they're going to do midterm elections.
Yes.
In Britain, they are also, they're just, I think they're just done, or they're going to do their own local government elections. Everywhere elections are segregated and they are staggered.
Do we need to take that
Kenya, for
particular
our own
approach?
reason. Huh?
Do we need to relook?
That is what intelligent and reasonable nations do. But Kenya, because of our own politics, we decided let us lump all these things together. For reason that of selfish politics, and you'll have to go back to the time the constitution was being made. It is madness to run 6 elections in a day.
Okay.
Everywhere you have local government elections, parliamentary elections separately, presidential elections separately.
Okay, fair.
Why do we do all those things? It is because of the nature of our own local politics. We have failed to address that, and we fear to call it by its rightful name.
Okay.
So the convenient scapegoat is IEBC.
Fair enough. Honorable Kiplagat, can you?
Maybe first I want to dispute on just a divergent view on what Honorable Oswag was raised in terms of why we cannot stagger our elections. You know, Kenya is still maturing democratically in terms of elections and representation. So we might start some other ideas like staggering an election, and we end up building a one-party state without knowing. Because basically, I will tell you, the results of the presidential vote, any other elections after that will tend to determine where the government of the day is.
Okay.
You get
briefly because of time.
You might not get, unlike where you are doing all the elections and everybody has a fighting chance. After that, any other elections that comes, any other election of the local elections that comes, will now the framework will have changed, and chances are you might get the representation being a one-way kind of. So some ideas are good, but theoretically are good, but practically in a country like Kenya, we need to constrain a bit, and we move at baby steps. So maybe what I want to say is that we have a long way to go as a country, but what is affecting this country, not elections alone, is being trust issues. There are so many trust issues that we find ourselves in everywhere.
Okay.
In every segment of the society, aside that we don't even trust our own processes. We have to go to outside the country to bring a paper.
Let me ask you, Honorable Kiplagat, in under 1 minute, kindly. Yeah. We talk about election reforms, and he has alluded to, the issue of, we've all alluded to the issue of funds and the advantage that comes with having a, huge financial muscle. We talk about reforms, and part of the reforms, most of it has to go through Parliament.
Yes.
So, can we trust the political class to credibly address this particular issue of election reforms if you are beneficiaries of the existing systems?
That's a double-edged sword question, because there's a saying, I don't know, Honorable Kunjiri will tell you, that you go to a court, a sheep goes to a court that is administered by hyenas, and you expect to get justice. So what I mean by that is that if you are expecting the political class to come up with laws that will change how they are going to benefit from that system, I think it will be a bit difficult, because when a law comes, when we are passing a law in Parliament, especially to deal with elections and to deal with the reforms in the elections, we usually see ourselves in that mirror. So once you are seeing yourself in that mirror, you are not outside that orbit. You are within that mirror. For sure, the outcome will be, your guess will be as good as mine.
Okay.
That something that will come out is that either it is important to implement, or finally it will tend to conform with the majority of the thinking of the politicians who are passing that law.
Okay, fair enough. We are running out of time. I'll give you gentlemen a minute each to give me your final submissions. And even as you do, starting with the Honorable Kimani Ngujiri, I don't know if you'll be, going for the Bahati parliamentary seat in 2027. And if so, there's the issue of, the incumbency advantage, where you see governors, you see probably the head of state, members of parliament, using state resources to campaign. That is illegal as per the laws here in the country, but it happens. Why is it so difficult to successfully take these people head on, even in court? Because if you're using state resources to campaign, then that is an illegality.
Let me just say what
briefly,
a member of parliament have said.
Yes.
If you take a case of a goat to the lion, what will happen? What will be the judgment of it? Very simple question, because these people are connected together. You come and see, like now, already there are people, like say now in my county where I come from, where they're identifying somebody, this and so is going to stand here, so and so is going to stand here. So there will be no democracy at all. And that's where the corruption starts. And that's where the fight starts. I remember something Matiba was saying all the time, let the people decide. You see, these kind of things we are doing now actually is going to get out of our hands. Day by day, the way I'm seeing it, with my age and working with the 4 presidents, I'm seeing the way we are going, we are losing. We are not actually gaining the way it's supposed to be. Okay. Because we are talking about transparency. How does it come? It is me and you and even you in the media. And I'm happy of you because you are neutral. You go even other stations, you'll be able to know the presenter belongs to which side. You'll be able to know straight away. It's only this station I'm seeing, you are very neutral, and you are letting everybody to talk the way he thinks, and we answer the questions. So that's why I'm repeating all the time, it's all of us. We must join our hands to make sure the election is yes, I'm vying in the Bahati, and I know the mistake of the server, which happened. Okay. So I'll take care of the server. That's why I'm saying we are supposed to go back and make a law in the parliament that the server must be opened if anything have a problem, so that we can be transparent, all of us. If we don't do that, then we are going to be a problem. Finishing, let the government give IEBC money, which they want after being assessed by the parliament. The money which will be assessed by the parliament, let it be given IEBC early. You know, even now, we have passed something which is very bad. We don't have time. Very bad. We are supposed border review to do. That is another thing that should have talked about. You see, the constitution of Naivasha, voters are almost 200 and something. Other areas, they are 50. Fair enough. It's not fair. We're running out of time. Honorable Mr. Oswago, as you give me your final submissions, kindly address that particular issue, the issue of delimitation, because IEBC finds itself in unfamiliar territory. We need to do that delimitation in, I think, we have, according to the timelines, less than 3 months. Is it really possible? How can the commission go about it?
Quickly, the law requires that any changes to boundaries must be in place 1 year before the election. That alone means there will be no delimitation. Number 2, delimitation under Article 9 of the Constitution is a very lengthy process. In the last time it was done by an independent body, which was called the Interim Independent Boundaries Commission. And the Interim Independent Boundaries Commission was working at the same time like Interim Independent Election Commission. Today, I don't think IEBC has the competency to do boundaries delimitation. Because boundary delimitation does not mean having a ruler, having a map. If the entirety of Article 87 says is a complex process that involves everything else. In fact, one of the provisions of Article 89 says all stakeholders will be involved in the boundary delimitation process. It doesn't say most. All stakeholders are involved. That tells you how complex, that tells you how expensive it is. In a nutshell, boundary delimitation cannot be done next year because the law that will be followed must be in place 1 year before. Secondly, already as we are speaking, there is a case that challenged the outcome of the 2012 census.
Affecting 14 constituencies.
Yes. Now it means that that census is suspended. You cannot do boundary delimitation until and unless you have a complete census. Because there is something in Article 89 which is called population quota. Without that, you can't do that. So delimitation must be done only when you have done the census.
Okay, fair enough. Honorable Kiplagat, 30 seconds kindly. Your final shot, your final submission, sorry.
Okay, finally what we want to say is that Kenya still has a long way to go when it comes to management of elections. The current setup in which we manage our elections from the polling station to the National Tallying Center has been rather a bit bumpy, and to save this country from taking another angle which might not be good, it is high time that we actually review how elections are managed and how IEBC is run, and how the process of voting, the process of tallying, and the process of announcing the results. I feel we are always at the edge, and the opaqueness and the propaganda that is generated out of that opaqueness usually takes us to the edge. So rather than every now and then we have the Supreme Court gives around 14 days of sitting and watching them and watching all lawyers minting money, it's high time we relook at the whole thing so that we can be able to save ourselves. But what we need to build as Kenyans, we need to build trust in ourselves and trust in our systems. Once we have that, then I think, and we remove the issue of regionalism and tribalism. I think that's the biggest headache that we need that affects the elections and elections outcome, that actually compounds the trust issue.
Pretty much. Thank you very much, Honorable Ngunjiri. Honorable Kiplagat, you are the first one. I give you the first chance.
I went the other way around.
we can't do that because of time. Sorry, apologies, Honorable Ngunjiri. Mr. Osoko, thank you very much. That was a conversation here in regards to the road to 2027 and whether indeed we are ready as a country to hold the 2027 general election. Many thanks, of course, staying with us up to this particular time, to the team behind the scenes that made this particular session possible. Many thanks. Until next time, do yourself a wonderful night. Enjoy the rest of our programming if you are not sleeping. And like always, God bless.